last night's election. First off, should we be surprised that Trump was on full display with his racism and his xenophobia and his misogyny? Some guy in the crowd yelled, 12 more years of Trump. And Trump says, you're right. Don't say that too loud, though. They love to call me a fascist. He was calling Nikki Haley Nimrata, which is not even her name. It's Nimrata, but that, her middle name is Nikki, and that's the name she goes by. I mean, you're entitled to do that. Jimmy Carter's first name was James. Jack Kennedy's first name was John. Come on, but in any case. On the media, he said, these are sick people. We have to straighten out our free press. Uh-oh. And he went on to say, Bird Brain has been lying about this and many other things for weeks. She can't beat the Democrats. Actually, it looks like Haley probably has a better chance of beating Democrats than Trump, beating Biden. He said she's made an unholy alliance with the globalists, the radical left communists. Nikki Haley is using radical Democrat money to fund the radical Democrat campaign operation. She's right. They're still following. Isn't this funny? They're still following Joe McCarthy's advice to never use the actual name of the Democratic Party because it sounds democratic. It sounds nice. People like things that are democratic. So instead, always call it the Democrat Party with emphasis on the rat. And Trump was doing that last night, just like he was reading his script. And then he also said he was going to free the J6ers and called them hostages. I mean, this is all the fascism stuff. Jeff Tiedrich this morning in his Substack newsletter over at jefftiedrich.com really lines this up. And I think it's quite important to realize this, that, the majority of Americans are basically saying they'll never vote for Trump. And this is a problem that is, quite concerning to many people in the GOP right now. Jeff Tiedrich says, he's a coward draft dodger who pretends to have the courage to disarm a school shooter. He doesn't. He's an illiterate C- student who pretends to be a genius. He's the $500 million inheriting Nepo baby who pretends to be self-made. He's the failed casino operator and game show host who pretends to be a success. He's a grifter and fraud who pretends to be honest. He's the angry rapist who pretends to be irresistible to women. He's the soft, pampered weakling who pretends to be the apex of masculinity. He's the traitor who pretends to be a patriot. He's an aging dotard lost in an ever-thickening haze of dementia who pretends that pointing at a drawing of a camel is proof of his mental acuity. And he's the two-time popular vote loser who pretends to be a winner. But these are the numbers that came out of the exit polls yesterday in New Hampshire that I think are really good news for the Biden campaign, assuming that Trump actually ends up with the nomination. And, he's going to walk away with Nevada, which is next week, I think, or the week after. And then 2-3 weeks down the road, I think it's the second week of February, we've got the South Carolina primary. South Carolina, on the one hand, that's Nikki Haley's home state. On the other hand, Trump has most of the politicians in that state endorsing him. They don't want somebody coming to their house with a hammer breaking in at 2:00 in the morning. I mean, but anyhow, here are the numbers. Nearly half, 47% of Republican primary voters. These are people who actually showed up and voted. And the majority of them, by the way, voted for Trump. Nearly half, 47% of GOP primary voters said that Trump would not be fit to serve as president if he was convicted of a crime. Fully 84% of Haley voters. Now, granted, many of these are independents as opposed to Republicans, but nonetheless, that's the swing vote that decides an election. Fully 84% of Haley voters said a criminal conviction would be disqualifying. And a Fox News analysis, Fox News for God's sake, Fox News analysis of 1,800 GOP primary voters found that more than a third of them would never, ever vote for Donald Trump. 1/3 of Republican primary voters, nearly 2/3 of New Hampshire primary voters, 64%, said that they do not consider themselves part of the MAGA movement. They are not maggots. And don't call us that. We're not, we're not affiliated with that guy. That's a third. You can't win a general election with your base of support being 1/3 of your own party. if you're looking for an analogy, and I have not heard anybody make this analogy so far, and it's probably because most people in the media aren't old enough to remember it. But I think the analogy for this election, this 2024 election, when the dust settles, a year from now, when we're having this conversation, right, in January of 2025, after the new president has been sworn, after the existing president, Joe Biden, has been sworn back into office again, we're going to be having this conversation and saying, this bears a lot of resemblance to the election of 1964, Barry Goldwater. Barry Goldwater was, at the 1964 convention, Barry Goldwater got up and gave this speech about, defense extremism and the defense of liberty is no vice and moderation is no virtue, right? And he got wildly cheered for this. And then Nelson Rockefeller, Jerry Ford's vice president, Nelson Rockefeller got up on, who would become Jerry Ford's vice president. Anyhow, Nelson Rockefeller, at that time, I think he was the governor of New York State. He was a Republican, and he got up on the stage and he said, we need to be a little more moderate. These Goldwater radicals, he didn't call them that, but it was clearly what he was talking about. These people are going to lose us the election hugely. And he got shouted off the stage. I've played clips of this before on this program. It's probably been 5 or 10 years since I did so. I used to have a whole clip collection from the 64 election. Just fascinating stuff. And I think Trump is going to be playing the role of Barry Goldwater in this election. Now, I could be totally wrong. In 2016, I thought Hillary Clinton was going to walk away with it. And sure enough, she won by 3 million votes. But, nobody had counted the over 100 million impressions on Facebook that would be made on a very targeted basis because Paul Manafort was taking internal Republican polling and handing it off to Russian intelligence so that they could help Donald Trump become president. I mean, that just wasn't factored into the equation.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
And of course, the Russians are going to do it again, right? They're already doing it again. But I'm still thinking Goldwater, yeah. What say you?